Good evening. I'm speaking to you from a very cold Belgium. It's supposed to be springtime here, but it is still very cold. So that would be the theme of my painting as well. It would be a pond that we are painting with beautiful springtime background, with a tree and the reflection of the tree and lavender fields in the background. So I've started out with just blocking in the big spaces that we're going to be painting on, which would be the pond in the foreground, the grassy areas in the background, and then the lavender fields and the sky. So this is what it looks like after I've blocked in all my main areas and I've added the shadows as well. Remember, when you do the shadows, also put the highlights that you put in for your trees. You also add that. I'm using a sponge together with the paint I'm using is my violet, and I mix it with a little bit of cobalt blue to put in the lavender shadow side of the lavender field. And just careful to go around all the trees and the space like that. Now I'm mixing a lighter color, which is a little bit of white together with the blue and the violet color. And I'm just adding that as a highlight where the sun catches the lavender fields. It also brings out that violet color very nicely. If you just put violet down straight from the tube, it just looks like a dark blue, but when you add white, it brings a very nice color to it. Okay, and I also did mix a little bit of my magenta with it. You will see a little bit later. I'm just taking care to mix it not too smoothly in, so that you see a little bit of each color in the highlights as well. And so right in the background, you've got your very distant colors, which will be more muted. So whatever it represents, whether it's mountains or just more foliage, that will just be a lot lighter. So I've added a little bit more white to my lavender fields because the paint does dry, acrylic paint does dry at least one shade darker. And I do want that to look like the sun. That is my lightest area in the middle where the sun catches it nicely. And so now I'm mixing the background color of the blue. It's my cobalt blue with a bit of white. And I'm just blocking in with my sponge, being careful to change the direction that I'm putting it down every time so that it doesn't form a pattern. But it does create a very nice texture, and it's an easy way to block in big spaces. I'm now adding the highlights of the light blue. So I've just mixed it with a little bit more white. I almost wanted the same color as my sky color, which is a very, very light color, so that it blends in nicely. So my cooler colors are in the background, and my warmer and brighter colors would be more to the foreground. I'm just making sure that I'm adding in all the spots in between. I'm using my sponge to create a reflection of the light in the darker side where the shadow side is of my trees. So sometimes the grass or whatever is around your subject, like the tree, it will reflect into the subject itself. So, and I'm just adding that into my reflection as well. And it's basically a mirror image of my tree. I'm just adding some more of the grassy area in the front, which is a dark area because it's against the light. So it's not really catching much of the light. The trees would also be casting a shadow over that area. So I'm adding more blue to my green to make it darker. And then remember, whatever color you use in your picture, the background will be reflecting on your pond surface because it's like a mirror. And because it's a pond and not a fast running river, the images are very recognizable, and I'm using a zigzag motion to just fill in the in-between areas in between the reflection of the trees. And so that your areas closer to you would be your sky that's reflecting, and that would be your lightest area. So that would be more in the foreground of the pond. Just adding it in with a bit of like a dry brush stroke there, so that you can see some of the other colors underneath it still shining through as well. And I'm just making sure that I'm filling the areas of the sky reflecting into the pond. That would be the same color then that I would be using for my ripples. So that would be the highlights of the ripples that you would be seeing in the pond. You can see I'm using like a smooth motion. Over here I'm using the side of my brush, so the sharp side of the brush, not the thick side, to add the highlights of the ripples. And I pull it right across the images of the trees, just to break up that image. And in between, I do the zigzag motion. There you go. So most of the highlights has been placed in. And I've added some of the lavender colors into the pond as well. I'm just going over it with some of the darker blue, which would be the shadow area that you would see underneath each ripple. So that's just the cobalt blue that I've been using. The brown in the trees is the Van Dyke brown, and I've also added a little bit of red to it just to make it a deeper, richer color. In the highlight area, I've just added some white towards the right where the sun would catch it. And you will see just now, I will mute that light color where it's basically a reflection of the ground surface into the shadow side of the tree. Okay, so this is just making sure that each highlight has got its own little shadow as well. And I'm just defining the in-between spaces. I try to connect all my colors together so that it flows nicely. This is the highlight color that I'm mixing for my grassy area, where the shadows is not being cast by the trees. And I just, it's my lemon yellow and my cobalt blue that I mixed for the green, and I added a little bit more blue because it's a cold shadow color with some white. And then just remember to bring that right into the pond as well. You can see it's already creating a very nice effect. Okay. Here I've mixed some of my green, my darker green, to create the foliage of the trees, the leaves of the trees. And so that is your cobalt blue with your lemon yellow that I've mixed. And I've obviously put a lot more blue than yellow so that it's a darker color. The nice thing is it does catch some of the yellow on the sponge, so you've got some dark and some lighter spots. I do add a little bit more yellow to it in a second. On the outer sides where you can see the light is kind of shining through the leaves of the trees, and that would be where you will see more yellow of the trees. To make your green lighter, you just add more yellow to it instead of white. I'm adding more blue to the shadowy sides where the shadows are being cast by the trees. And I'm making sure I am bringing it into my pond area as well, as the part of the reflection. I just picked up some of the lemon yellow to make some highlights on the surface of the grassy area. And now I'm also doing the same for adding some of the leaves with a lighter color. And it creates a beautiful effect of the sun shining through the leaves. On the left-hand side, I added foliage where there wasn't, or leaves where you can't see the stem of a tree, but it's just to give the illusion that there is a tree just out of sight on that side. And it kind of puts the viewer into the painting, so it feels like you're standing right there with this branch of leaves, almost like in your view, although you can't see the tree. And then I'm just bringing that same color into with my sponge. I'm just using the sharp end of my sponge just to bring some of that color in as well. And now I am highlighting the bright yellow where the sun is catching. You can use your imagination, whatever that could be. It could be I don't know, field of yellow flowers, or it can be just whatever yellow plants there can be, but I wanted to make it a bright yellow, and you can see how beautiful it shows off against the lavender color because it's complementary colors. And now I'm also bringing that color into my pond as a reflection. You won't see too much of it because it's quite far away, but just to bring the unity into the painting, I did use some of that for the highlight colors. And I'm just filling in between where the blue of the pond is. I'm just adding some more of the colors and kind of connecting them all to each other. So it gives you that beautiful flowing motion. Because although the pond is standing still, there is movement. So some of the lines are horizontal and some would be vertical as well. So you can just drag your brush downwards, and that gives a nice effect as well. I'm just using some of my blue to bring back in that shady color of the grassy area, and some of the lighter green where the highlights of the grassy area in the front. Because there's a bit of a bank area, I'm putting darker colors over there to just create a shadow. So I'm using some of my brown that I mixed with my blue. That's my darkest color there. And you'll see I will also bring that into the pond area. I'm really using a very limited palette, so it's not too many colors. And now I am using the lighter green color to mute that reflection into the shadow side of the tree. And I'm also adding a little bit more red to the tree itself. It makes that brown just a richer, nicer color. I'm just adding some of the grasses, the long grasses that you can see in the front, and I'm using quite my darkest dark color. So that would be the brown mixed with the blue to create a contrast against the light reflection. And I will be doing the same on the other side just to create some unity. And I decided to make it just little white flowers, but you can make it any color you want to. I just like the white. And if you look at the composition of this painting, your focus point would definitely be your trees and the reflection on the pond. Then that draws your eyes. And the contrast that you have between the light and the dark and the sky, the dark branches, the dark of the branches, and the light of the sky creates some interest. And the complementary colors of the purple and the yellow that you can see in there also makes it just look, it just makes the color pop. It's very nice. And then because I've got a lot of green in my painting, the complementary color for green is red. Your brown red color in your trees already brings that green out a lot. But I did decide to put a little bit of a red, suggestion of red flowers in the background. And when you put grasses, don't put them all in one side, unless it's a windy day and you want to create a movement going into one direction. But this is a nice quiet day, so because you can see on the reflection on the pond, it's not. You can see the trees nicely. It's like more of a mirror image. So your grasses in the front would be some going left, some going right, some crossing over, instead of all going in one direction. And now I'm just adding little white dots for the flowers, little fine flowers. and I'm making sure to put it like in 3s or 5s, unequal amounts together, and it forms little triangles, which is very pleasing to the eye. And that is just about my painting finished. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you, and I hope you're having a fun time creating your own creation. Use your imagination and have lots and lots of fun.